All right, so today we're going to talk about the difference between intramolecular and intermolecular forces. So just a brief overview of this is it's the difference between covalent bonding and intermolecular forces. So intramolecular bonding is bonds within molecules, and we just did this when we're dealing with like single, double, and triple bonds that are covalently bonded. Intermolecular forces is something we've kind of talked around a little bit with gases, but now we're going to directly address it. And intermolecular forces are interactions between molecules, and there's three categories of this, which is hydrogen, dipole, and London dispersion. So I just wanted to briefly break this down because it's a very common thing for students to misperceive or get incorrectly which one's which. So if you notice this HCl, there's a very strong covalent bond between the hydrogen and the chlorine, this molecule here. And then we have another hydrogen chlorine, which also has an incredibly strong bond between it. Where the intermolecular force comes in is inter means between molecules, and that's the force of attraction here between this HCl molecule and this HCl molecule. Another example of this before we dive in deeper looks at this. We have two oxygen molecules, one here and one here. And both of these oxygens have an incredibly strong double bond between them. And then they have a very weak intermolecular force between them here. So anytime we're talking about intermolecular forces, we're talking about the interactions between molecules, not the bonding that makes the molecules. So let's focus on intermolecular forces now. And as I indicated on the previous slide, there's three basic categories, which is hydrogen, dipole, and London dispersion forces. And all three of them are based upon this notion of electronegativity. So what happens is that the ones that have the greatest electronegativity difference will be hydrogen bond. Then if there's a little bit less, it'll be dipole. And even lesser will be London. Now this slide here is packed with a lot of words, but this defines each of the intermolecular forces for you. So the hydrogen bond is the strongest, and you have a strong dipole with hydrogen that's attached to a molecule, and that molecule that is attached to has to be an atom of fluorine, oxygen, or nitrogen, or I abbreviate it as FON. So you have a hydrogen that's attached to a fluorine, oxygen, and nitrogen. And then you come in contact with another molecule which has a hydrogen attached to a fluorine, oxygen, or nitrogen. And then you have hydrogen bonding between those. Dipole is you have strong polarity differences, but it's not as strong as hydrogen, and it's not as weak as London. So it's just kind of in between. And then London dispersion forces, every molecule has this interaction, and it only gets stronger with more molecules, since more molecules have more electrons to make this work. So let's talk about polarity. Here I have a water molecule, and you've seen this throughout the year. We've drawn this multiple times. I think you would agree if you were to draw the Lewis structure of this, you would have two lone pairs. One lone pair roughly here, one lone pair roughly here, and then essentially on a water molecule, there's a slight polarity difference where there's more of a negative polarity here on the oxygen, and then there's a slight positive polarity on this hydrogen, and then another slight positive polarity on this hydrogen. And so what happens with hydrogen bonding, which I like to call hydrogen forcing, because again, it's not a bond, and I think it's important to recognize that. It's an intermolecular force, so there's nothing actually bonding between these molecules. It's just the interactions or the forcing that they have. So we're going to have the positive charge hydrogen of one molecule, and it's going to be attracted to the negative charge of another. So again, you have this hydrogen with fluorine, oxygen, and nitrogen. And so it looks like this, where we have two molecules. I indicated that this oxygen would be slightly more negative, this hydrogen slightly more positive, and so you get an intermolecular forcing between this oxygen and this hydrogen here. Now this is not found in isolation, so if you have a bunch of water molecules, you're going to have numerous hydrogen bonding. And in this case, it's also important to recognize that not each interaction will be a hydrogen bond. The hydrogen bonds are here because you have this hydrogen aligned with this oxygen to get a hydrogen bond here, and you get this hydrogen with this oxygen to get a hydrogen bond here. But on this side, you notice there's two oxygens, and that's not going to work. And there's two oxygens over here that also will not work. And so therefore, this will have intermolecular forcing, but it will not have the hydrogen bonding. Though water is the primary example, again, you can have this with anything that's fond. So you notice we have a water molecule here with an ammonia molecule. And again, if you look at ammonia, we have nitrogen, which is part of FON, attached to hydrogen. We have oxygen attached to hydrogen. This will be slightly more negative. The hydrogen will be slightly more positive, and so you'll have a hydrogen forcing or a hydrogen bond between these two molecules. So therefore, we talked about hydrogen bonding. You can see the hydrogen, you can see the FON. These are the three most highest electronegative molecules that are out there. Dipole is less strong than hydrogen, where you have a positive in one molecule that's attached to a negative end of the other. The greater the polarity is, the more dipole you're going to have, and then the stronger the forcing will be for that to occur. So you notice here I have hydrogen and chlorine. Again, hydrogen is here and chlorine is here, so a huge electronegativity difference. So when these are bonded together, the hydrogen is going to be slightly positive, the chlorine is going to be slightly negative. This hydrogen is slightly positive, this chlorine is slightly negative, and then there's going to be an intermolecular forcing between these two right here. And there's different types of dipole interactions. So permanent dipole means what it states. So if you look at this molecule, we have three hydrogens and a chlorine attached to a carbon. The chlorine will be more negative. The carbon's going to be more positive. And then this carbon here, this other molecule, this carbon here will be positive. And this is a permanent polarity. So any molecule that you run into of this CH3Cl, the carbon's going to be slightly positive, the chlorine's going to be slightly negative, and so this has a permanent polarity with the chlorine negative. The carbon has a permanent positive polarity, and therefore this is called a permanent dipole intermolecular force, because this permanent polarity is always present. Permanent dipole is the strongest of the different dipole forces. The other two that you can have is permanent dipole induced. So essentially you have a permanent polarity on a molecule, and then you have a nonpolar molecule you're going to run into, and that's going to create a polarity on that molecule, and then you're going to have an intermolecular force. But because this molecule creates that polarity, it's going to be less than like a permanent. So let me show you an example of this. Oxygen, O2, is completely nonpolar. So when oxygen is together, neither oxygen has an extra positive or negative polarity. It's very neutral. But when it comes to contact with water, because water has a permanent polarity where the oxygen is negative and the hydrogen is positive, you're actually going to induce oxygen to have a polarity now. And you notice one side of that oxygen that's closest to the water will become slightly more positive, and therefore this will get induced to have this intermolecular force right here of this dipole-induced dipole. And then the weakest item is the induced dipole, which is the London dispersion forces. Literally any molecule that comes in contact with any other molecule will undergo London dispersion forces at the bare minimum. And so therefore that process will happen and occur where these things will happen. And you just need to know London is the weakest forces that are out there. All right. So let's go talk about how that these intermolecular forces can influence things in real life. One item is melting and boiling point. So when you have ionic compounds, they're solid at room temperature, and if you turn them into a liquid, you actually break the bonds within the molecule to turn it into a liquid. But with covalent molecules, it's all based upon intermolecular forces. So any liquid you have that's covalent, it'll only boil and go to a gas when you can overcome the intermolecular forces, or the IMF forces, that then will allow the gas to escape. So because water has hydrogen bonding, that's one reason why water has such a high boiling point at roughly 100 degrees Celsius compared to corresponding other elements that have maybe the same mass as water and the same composition as water. Another item that intermolecular forces influences is vapor pressure. So high vapor pressure is things that evaporate rather quickly. You think about like rubbing alcohol. You drop rubbing alcohol like on a counter, or you put it on your hands, that's going to have an incredibly high vapor pressure. For instance, hand sanitizer actually has a really high vapor pressure. So you basically like rub this gel substance on there, and then essentially it turns, it immediately goes in your skin, and then the remaining wetness essentially evaporates really quickly. Where low vapor pressure evaporates slowly. And so you have two liquids at the same temp, and the one with the stronger IMS will take a longer time to evaporate than the one that has less IMFs. So this chart here is another example showing this. So what happens is we're looking at the number of carbons that an item has, and then the boiling point or melting point that it takes. And what happens is as you keep adding more and more carbons, you're going to add more intermolecular forcing, and that intermolecular forcing is then going to allow each of the new carbons that has more carbons and more hydrogen and more intermolecular forcing to boil at a slightly higher temperature. So this just shows how why larger carbon strands are going to have a higher melting or boiling point than ones that have fewer, and it's all due to the intermolecular forces. So here ties in a little bit what I talked about with water. So water has really, really high intermolecular forcing with the hydrogen bonds. That's why its boiling point is here. Where H2S should be similar to water. I mean, they sit in the same family on the periodic table. They have roughly the same properties. But because H2S can only do dipole, it immediately drops the boiling point all the way from 100 down to roughly a -70, -80 degrees Celsius. And you can see this too with HF. That's going to have relatively strong hydrogen bonding. And then you go to HCl, that's going to go to dipole. And it's relatively strong dipole, but you're still going to go from a positive down to a negative for that. So again, you can kind of see the impact that these items have. And we use these intermolecular force properties in huge items. So alcohol distillation is the process of where you create a substance that has alcohol in it, and then you separate that substance based solely upon the boiling point of the water compared to the alcohol. And in most alcoholic distillation that's done commercially, the product that they're looking for is ethanol. And ethanol boils at about 78 degrees Celsius. Water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. And so what happens in a distillation is that you'll heat up the distillate that has the water and the ethanol in it. And then because the ethanol boils at a lower temperature, you can evaporate more of the ethanol off, around like 80, 85, 90, 95 degrees Celsius. And then when you condense this down here, you're going to condense and get more and more stronger when it comes to the ethanol that comes out. So any hard alcohol that you've ever heard about, whether it's whiskey or scotch or gin or vodka, so on and so forth, that your parents happen to have or you've ever seen in a grocery store, they use the same process of this alcoholic distillation using intermolecular forces to do this. Okay, that's just a brief overview over IMFs. We will spend time going through this in class the next week or so. And please bring questions and please be ready to go.